Hey guys, welcome back to Stanley Boy Reviews. I'm your host Stanley. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to check out my channel to talk about your favorite horror films and my favorite horror films. It is St. Patrick's Day. I don't know what that means exactly, but happy St. Patrick's Day anyway. You are not going to be watching this on St. Patrick's Day because I am not going to post this on St. Patrick's Day, but please know that it is St. Patrick's Day right now. I am wearing something green and you just can't see it. It's my underwear. Please take this time to subscribe if you haven't, because a lot of great things are coming your way. Please believe it. You guys, we are going to be talking about the only St. Patrick's Day themed horror film that exists to my knowledge. Outside of the 4,000 sequels that follow it, of course, it is 1993's monster opus, Oscar-winning, just kidding, Leprechaun, starring Warwick Davis from Willow and Miss Jennifer Aniston's Old Nose. So go grab your shoe shine, go grab your pot of gold, and go grab your Lucky Charms. And let's talk about this movie because it's a movie. And I'm gonna have a seat, you have a seat. Let's get to it.
Is that you? I'm going to twist your back like mine so you'll never get out of bed again. Never get out of bed again! Never get out of bed again!
I don't even know where to begin with Leprechaun. I guess we should start with Vidmark Entertainment, or Trimark Pictures. It was a movie distributing company that was created in the mid-80s by a guy named Mark Amen, or Mark Amen. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name, as usual. It was famous for distributing independent, low-budget movies, and Leprechaun was actually the first theatrical release. Before that, they were famous for movies such as Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, and eventually they would have cable success with movies like The Dentist, directed by Brian Usna, and one of my favorite movies, Return of the Living Dead 3, and other films like Sometimes They Come Back Again, Pinocchio's Revenge. The list actually goes on and on and on. Oh, and eventually, this company would go defunct in 2001. Leprechaun is a movie made specifically for drinking. You should be taking drinks every time this character laughs, every time he shines a shoe, every time he is in a mode of transportation that is made specifically for his size, which is quite often. By the time this movie ends, I guarantee you will be hammered. And don't even drink beer. Just skip beer and go straight to liquor, and you will have such a blast with this movie because it's fun. It's stupid and it's not good, but it is fun, and I will give it at least that much. It's written by a guy named Mark Jones, who was inspired by both the Lucky Charms commercials and a movie called Critters that came out in the mid-80s. Yes, please put both of those things in your back pocket. This man was inspired by a box of cereal and a really bad movie that had really bad puppets. He took both of those ideas to Mark Amen. By October 1991, filming took place on Big Sky Ranch Studios, where they also filmed Terminator 2 and Little House on the Prairie. And by December of 1991, this movie was wrapped. By January of 1993, it was released into theaters after doing some reshoots to secure an R rating and to add more gore, and it actually performed really well at the box office. It raked in over $8 million against its $1 million budget, and it had a pretty big star as the lead role of the Leprechaun. It had Warwick Davis, who had worked with Ron Howard in the movie Willow, and it had Jennifer Aniston, who had done nothing, but would go on to be a very, very extravagantly big actress. She would go on to be in the show Friends.
And the winner is Jennifer Aniston, Friends.
I barely just got here, jeez.
And be one of the world's biggest actresses. Less than a year later, we would get a sequel to Leprechaun. Less than a year after that, we would get another sequel to Leprechaun. By today, he would have gone to Vegas. He would have gone to space. He would go to the hood. He would go back to the hood. But nothing quite compares to the original tale about a little evil shoe-shining midget who just wants his pot of gold. So let's just get into it. Leprechaun is about an old man who has just buried his mom in Ireland and returns to his farmhouse in the Midwest and has stolen a pot of gold, or a sack of gold, from a wee person, and has revealed this to his wife and is really excited about it and decides to go hide it somewhere on his farmland. What he doesn't know is that the Leprechaun has followed him home. So the Leprechaun seeks retribution against the old couple He doesn't get very far, ends up sealed up in a crate in the basement of this old house, secured by a four-leaf clover, which we learn early on is his biggest nemesis. Leprechauns are afraid of four-leaf clovers. Why? I don't know. Cut to 10 years later, the house is empty and is now going to be renovated by a man and his daughter, played by Jennifer Aniston, and three painters, a hottie, a simpleton, and the hottie's youngest brother. It doesn't take long for the simpleton, Ozzy, played by Mark Horton, to unleash the leprechaun, swallow one of his coins, and the leprechaun will do anything to get his gold back, which, like I said, has been hidden on the farm somewhere and is now in the possession of the simpleton and the youngest brother. And yeah, that's literally the plot. In a minute. This is a movie, you guys. It's pure camp, and it doesn't take itself seriously, which are two things that I really like about it. It teeters for the next 90 minutes, and I think that's putting it mildly. But it's still enjoyable, even though it's really stupid. Warwick Davis has a lot of fun though, and he's probably one of the only reasons to watch this movie because he's just having a ball, man. And he is this movie. He's all of these movies. If you're gonna watch any of these movies, it's probably going to be because of Warwick Davis. If there was ever an Oscar category for little person with a lot of makeup as an evil villain, he would at least get nominated. Maybe not for the 26 sequels that follow, but definitely for this first entry in this series, because he is marvelous. Every time he's on the screen, he chews it up. From the physicality to his line delivery, he is just on top of the game 150%. And he takes what the stupid script gives him and just delivers atrociously. Unlike Warwick Davis, nobody else seems to know what kind of movie they're in. Mark Horton, though, was kind of adorable. I really liked the guy who played Ozzy. He gave a really endearing performance. I liked what he did with his character, and I kind of believed his portrayal. He really took a truly silly script and gave his character a sympathetic quality, and I respected that. He seemed to be the only real actor here outside of Warwick Davis. The effects were really good, and I can't imagine the daily torture that Warwick Davis had to go through to get this makeup on and off. And Gabe Bartalos really provided effective work, and I read that he did the makeup for Leprechaun 2, 3, 4, and 5. I don't know if he did any of the makeup after. He also did work on Friday the 13th Part 5, Fright Night Part 2, and another Vidmark release, Sometimes They Come Back. And with that being said, I should note that this movie does have some blood, but this movie had no right having so many people stay alive. It's one of those films where you can tell that they went back and did reshoots specifically to add more deaths and to secure an R rating. Like, they could have killed the entire main cast. Nobody had any right living in this movie. The Leprechaun should have done a lot more damage, and the movie probably could have been 25 times better. That's probably just the gorehound in me. Apparently, Mark Jones wrote a draft in the mid-80s, and it was supposed to be a straight-up horror film. I'm all for humor and a little bit of black comedy being infused into a script. When you make a horror comedy, it's supposed to be funny, and it's also supposed to be scary. And this movie really wasn't either. I wish there would have been a healthier balance of scary and funny. I talk to some people now, and they say that this movie is still kind of traumatizing for them. Child's Play is also kind of traumatizing, and there's also scenes in particular horror films that are traumatizing for adults for when they were children. And I don't see how this is one of them, because this movie, I find myself laughing. I just don't see how any of it could be deemed as scary, because it's just not scary. Even Davis in full makeup, I don't see it. I don't see it. And yeah, I guess there are a few spook elements, but by the time the movie wraps up, there's nothing remotely scary about Leprechaun or the Leprechaun himself. All in all, it's a cute holiday movie. And like I said earlier, there are no St. Patrick's Day themed horror films, so the barrel is pretty dry when it comes to the pickings for these kind of movies. So yeah, I watch it every year around this time, and I guess I find fun little things while I'm watching it. And I haven't even bothered with a majority of the sequels. I've seen the second, I've seen the third, I've seen the fourth, but I couldn't even tell you a lot about the fourth except that the Leprechaun erupts from the penis of one of the characters, and that my mom got really mad at me while I was watching it because I rented it from Blockbuster when I was like 10 or 11 years old. But I haven't seen any of the Hood entries. I haven't seen the origin story. I've seen Leprechaun Returns, the latest requel that came out a few years ago, and I kind of enjoyed that, and that's kind of fun to watch back to back with the original. I just don't care enough. I think that if I drank or if I smoked some pot still, that maybe it would be different. I do have a little bit of a fondness for the Leprechaun in Vegas because I love Las Vegas so much, so I love watching the location stuff. This just isn't my favorite series. This is just not a very well-balanced script. That's just the truth in the matter. Maybe I should marathon these movies though, and maybe my opinion will change, but I just highly doubt it. They're just not my cup of tea. And when you infuse comedy into horror, it just has to have the right balance, and these movies just don't. I think Sleepaway Camp is a perfect example of mixing black comedy with horror. Like Sleepaway Camp 2 and Sleepaway Camp 3 are very good examples of horror comedy because they're funny and they're also creepy. The humor shines in a much different and better way. I don't know. On Stanny's Stab-O-Meter, I would give this a 2. And that's for nostalgia factor. Like I said, it's fun, but it's not a good movie. And it's stupid, but it's charming. And Warwick Davis is a hoot. That's really all it has going for it. It's just not a great film. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment. No, I'll probably get a little bit of hate for this because I know this movie has its fans. And that's not to say I'm not one of them because like I said, I watch this movie every year. I find myself sitting through this movie every year and enjoying it. That doesn't mean it's good. So let me know what you think, guys. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Have a beer for me since I won't be drinking any. Turn this shit into a drinking game because it'll probably make it 1,000 times more enjoyable. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'm just a grumpy Gus because I'm not an alcoholic anymore. I don't know. Take care, you guys. I'll see you next week.